to record.
Ooh, serious now.
So if I hand over to you, I'll let people in as they come.
Yeah, no worries.
You guys can pin Mark, go to Mark's picture, and there's 3 little dots. If you click on the 3 little dots, you can pin Mark, and he'll stay center of your screen no matter who's talking. There we go, Mark.
Okay. Hang on, what do I have to press here? Right, got it. I was just about to press leave meeting. It was would have been crazy, wouldn't it? Right then, folks. Right, thank you, Derek. Really appreciate being asked to come back and tie. I've got 5 or 6 patterns tonight that I'm going to go through. Some that I've used really successfully this year, particularly during all the really hot weather. While I've been teaching and guiding on the still waters down here in the south, and really effective for sort of stalking at Abington and at Meon and places like that. The first fly I'm going to start off with tonight is pretty straightforward, but it's caught me more fish and the people I've been guiding and supporting more fish because of the low water levels than anything else. The fish obviously being very languid and not moving around very much, and down here I don't know what it's been like everywhere else. I've seen lots of pictures, but you know, we've lost 5-6 foot of water in some of the still waters here, and the fish have really suffered, but it's now all come back. So one of the things I had to do was come up with a different way to get my clients to actually catch fish, because that's one of the things that they're there for, of course. So I went old school and just went back to basic suspender buzzers. And I'm going to tie a Peccary Suspender Buzzer for you now.
Let me just mute myself a minute.
Derek's taking his Bitcoin meeting.
I'd be worried if I was him then.
And it's pretty straightforward, and it really was really effective. Tying with some Semperfly wax thread 12/0, and I'm just going to put it onto my hook. Now my hook is one of my all-time favorites, which I've used before with you guys, which is my Fulling Mill Czech Nymph hook. I do like the Partridge one as well, and I'm just going to tie on my tying thread up to the point of the hook, and back again about halfway. I'm going to use these quite small little foam cylinders that Semperfly produce, and they're really good value. You get loads in a pack, and I tie up with white, with chartreuse and pink, depending on light levels. And the ones I could find just now were the pink ones. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pinch wrap on. There we go. Pinch wrap on about half a centimetre of foam just behind the eye, but I've left a little gap just behind the eye here because I'm going to come back in there and just use that to cock up the foam tube. And then I'm just going to open turn down the foam tube a couple of millimeters down, and then I'm going to come in with my scissors, 45-degree cut to taper it. Ooh, as I knock everything off my desk, and then just tidy up those ends. Now, I always tie my suspender buzzers with enough foam so that they will sit in the surface, so they can use them like emergers as well. And then what I do is I then gradually trim off at the bank side of my nippers just bits of the foam, just so that it sinks to my required depth in the water. And then once I've got that, often it's that little, just as they're dropping, just that little tap pull that brings it up and just brings it up into the water, and that's generally the trigger for when the fish take it. But I don't want it to be sinking too fast nor too slow. Sort of want it at that sort of Goldilocks timing. Then I'm going to use some nice peccary. You can use whatever you like, to be fair. I picked this up from Steve. We had some in from Steve Cooper, and it's lovely stuff because it's beautifully barred. But it's also, if you look at it under a microscope, it's not hollow as such, but it's got air cells trapped in it, so it gives it a bit more buoyancy as well. And it's quite spongy to tie in with. So I'm going to take the tip end there, and it's quite fine. You often get them, they have split ends, but I always choose ones that don't have those splits. And I'm just going to tie that on to my hook, and I'm going to take that, my tie-in thread, and almost touching turns all the way round, as far as you like, really. I quite like to go quite far around the bend of the hook. There we go. And then I'm going to work my way back up there, and then just trim off any waste. There we go. As I said, it's very simple to tie. You can tie them up. I tie them up in lots of different colors, lots of different materials. You can turn it into a brassy with some wire. And then I'm just going to use the peccary and wind it in touching turns. And you get this really nice segmentation effect as you work your way up, taking your time. And typically, I tied up a few of these, and I generally tie them up in 14s and 16s. And I had one in the summer that I'd used. It must have taken about 20 fish. It was looking a bit battered or whatever, and it was like the perfect fly, and it was doing the business. And then somebody lost it in a tree. That was fun. And then take it all the way up into the thorax area. I also use the same peccary as well with a peccary emerger, with an egg-laying peccary emerger, which is a really nice pattern. Works really well on our southern short streams. And then I'm just going to just tidy up in the thorax area, and then bring my tying thread down in line with the hook point. Just give it a nice bed of, there we go, nice bed of tying thread there. Okay, so we've now got this beautiful looking segmentation, and I'm going to put the thorax in now. I just got to remember which tray I put in my dubbing. Yeah, so the dubbing I'm going to use is Nature Spirit Snowshoe Hair. When I buy in all my dubbing, I've got lots of these little cartridge containers here that are blank.
Yeah.
And I make up groupings of them like that because I find them easier to store as well. And on this one, I'm going to use the Calabatis for this. Now the snowshoe, it's really fine. It's obviously rabbit, but it's also got lots of guard hairs in it. So I'm just going to light dub it onto my thread. Here we go. Here we go. And here we go. Now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to form a dubbing loop with it on there in a slightly different way to normal. So I've already dubbed it on. What I'm going to do is just quickly just form a dubbing loop here, and then take my tying thread back up to the front. I'm going to take my dubbing loop spinner, and I'm just going to spin it up so it's quite tight. I find I get a better effect doing this than if I just dub it on, loop it all the way around, and then try and brush it out. And then we're going to take my my homemade special little comb, which is a bit of Velcro on a lolly stick that I've just cut into a third because it's easier to control. I'm just going to rub it down my loop and just pull out some of those hairs, like so. Not too much. Run your fingers down, take any loose bits out. They're going to fall out. And then I'm just going to use my hackle pliers to hold it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to wind that up towards the foam. And you can see it's already looking buggy. And then I'm going to bring it all the way back down again. I want it quite leggy. And then back up. There we go. And then I'm just going to put 2 locking turns in like that. Come in, trim that off, and just have a look at it. Now I can see where I left the gap just at the front here. Haven't crowded the eye. I'm just going to form a tiny little head just under that, just to cock that up like that. Hopefully you can see that. I will put pictures and things up on the group later on, or tomorrow morning. And then it's very simple then. Come in. Nice little whip finish. There you go. And as a fly, I wouldn't have been without it this year. It wouldn't be something I would fish them, but they'd be a time and a place. But it was I was on the water 3 or 4 times a week with people, and you know we'd go through the basic ideas, and we'd be retrieving the fish doing nothing, and then we go stalking for them and dropping these, you know, where they are, and you know, and the fish was suddenly turning on them, and they were really interested in buzzers, and everybody was saying, how are you catching fish when nobody else is catching? So it's because we're using the flies that they want to eat ultimately. And you can change that around. You can do whatever you like with that.
Pardon?
Mark, you need
Yeah.
you need to soak that peccary before you wind it.
I don't. You can, but it's not rigid. It's very, very spongy.
Oh, right. It's supple enough without it, is it?
Yeah, it's very supple stuff. It's very supple stuff. So I haven't had to do that yet. I do it with obviously peacock hill, strip peacock quill and things like that. But this stuff, I found that it takes the turn and it retains its strength all the way through.
Oh, good. I've got some somewhere. I bought years ago. Never used it.
Yeah. Well, I use it for dry fly bodies. I use it on buzzers. You know, I to be honest, sometimes I just use what I've got on my desk to produce a couple of flies, and I need to when I need to get out. So, you know, it's a really fantastic material. And a little patch like that, I think I had 2 in a pack, and it wasn't overly expensive from Steve. Doesn't look like much, but I tied loads from that so far, and I've still got enough there to keep me going.
Super.
Even so, I'll probably still buy some more at the BFFI if he's got some, because I'm a sucker for stuff like that. So yeah, so you know, other ways of doing them. I know you won't be able to see this particularly well, but you know, I've used sort of a mirage orange body here, and then instead of the snowshoe hair, I've just used Semperfly straggle string for the thorax, and that can be really effective, particularly if you use the straggle string brown. It's got this really great sort of purpley twinkle to it in ultraviolet light. It's fantastic. So I don't just use Semperfly stuff, by the way, but it just happened to have quite a lot of it. So that's my first one. Anything about that, guys?
Yeah, what hook was it again? Sorry,
That was a
size.
that was a size 12 I tied on just for everybody here. That's pretty big for me. We tend to fish, or I tend to fish with 14s, 16s, 18s. But that 12, I don't know about you.
What was it called again? The Peccary Emerger.
Yeah, a Peccary Suspender Buzzer. For the one
Oh,
of
it's
a
about
better
the
name.
equivalent to a 10 Camasan B110, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't get me started on hook sizes, because it just sort of, don't know about you
No,
guys,
so
I
much.
get so frustrated where you suddenly, I'm ordering in size 12 full in mils, and that is the same size as a size 10 in something else, and it's like,
Yeah.
really,
It's a better shaped hook though, isn't it?
It's a fantastically shaped hook, and
Yeah,
it's light enough as well to use on a dry fly.
yeah.
So
And it's strong
a
enough
win-win.
to catch a big fish, isn't it?
Exactly. It's a win-win, to be fair.
I like it myself.
They just brought a new version of that one out, haven't they, as well? They brought a heavy gauge one out recently.
Yeah, they have. The other one I like, and I just don't have any at the moment, is the Partridge check nymph hook as well. Those are my go-tos on those. Fly number 2 uses the same hook. So it's sort of a nymph. Well, it is a nymph. Call it the Houdini nymph. And it's called a Houdini nymph just purely because of the way in which it is produced. And there's very little thread involved with this. So what I'm doing is I'm putting on a tungsten bead on this. Steve will like this. You'll be there going, tungsten, grayling, Derbyshire Y. You'll be there, right? So nice sort of olive coloured tungsten 3.5 mil bead on the 12, so pretty heavy. And I'm just going to clip that
Where is he now?
in the vise. Now, for this particular fly, I might have to stand up in a minute, but you'll still see the fly. I'm going to tilt my vise towards you. Now, there's a reason for that, because of the way in which I'm going to have to manipulate the materials that I'm going to put into this. So I'm just going to reposition my hook so I get it where I want it. Right. Okay. So for this particular fly, the body is made up purely of wire. Okay. So what I've got here is I've got some Hens 0.18 mil coloured wires. I've got a green and a red, being a Welshman, green and red. All right, got to have those in there. All right, so green and red. All right, so that's what I've gone for. And what I've done is I've cut off 2 strands here, and I've tied a knot at either end so that they're equal length. So I've formed a loop. Okay, just a very simple. Well, I think I used a reef knot actually. It just whatever worked, to be fair. Okay, now I'm going to use that to form my body. And this works on the principles of woven nymphs. Okay, and I read somewhere that Czech woven nymphs and things like that. That the guys over in the Czech Republic and stuff, they keep those for the tourists and they just fish with normal nymphs. But it's just good fun and it's quite impressive when you see the final outcome. So what I'm going to do is going to take my loop there, and I'm going to hold it in my fingers. Just be careful because it does act like a bit of cheese wire if you pull too hard. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to slide it under my hook like that. Slide it under my hook so that it is touching it right on the vice jaws there. Now, I've got 2 colors here. For this particular one, I just got to think about this. I want the red on the top of the weave. Right. So if I get this right, okay, I'm going to put the red on the bottom to start off with. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the loop, and I'm going to bring the green on top of it and just twist my fingers forward. Okay, twist my fingers forward, and there, so I've got it twisted over. Oh, let me just do that again. Got it twisted over, and the red is trapping the green underneath now. Okay, so I'm going to have, no, go on this one, I'm going to have the green on the top. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take the red and come under and bring it back round. Okay, now the first one's always the most difficult. Okay, because it slides and it becomes a little bit difficult to maneuver with. But once you've got the first one in and that's locked in place, the green that I'm going to have on the top, I'm going to bring over the top and under, over the top and under, and then I should be left with my reds. Red goes under, red goes under, green goes over, green goes over, red goes under, red goes under, green goes over, green goes over, and you just continue like that, remembering that red always goes under and green always goes across the top. There we go. Now, if you pull too tight either side, it will start to eat into your fingers like cheese wire. So just be very careful with this. Okay, so red, red, green, green, red, red, green, green. I'm going to take it quite a way up because I can use it to form the undersection of the thorax as we move up. Now, the great thing is with wire is that when you let go of it, it doesn't all ping all the way back again. So the effect that I'm looking for, I don't know if you can, I don't know how well you can see that, probably not very well, but I will put some pictures up, is a woven green pattern on the top, and underneath, the red is underneath.
Yeah.
Now, you could do it with whatever color you like. You don't have to just do it with wire. You can do it with embroidery thread, with whatever you've got. You could do it with lava lace, I suppose. Might be slightly a bit rigid, okay, but you could do it with lava lace. When you get to the position where you finish, what I then do is I'm just going to helicopter them around to tie them in. Now, that body, all that weaving has now embedded it all together, so it's got inherent strength. It's not going to move. And then I'm just going to bring it forward like that. And I'm going to take some wire snips. I'm going to come in and just snip those off. Like so. And then just push the remainder of the wire just underneath the bead. So the bead is still free moving. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in with my thread, and I'm going to use quite a bright thread for this. So I'm going to use a fire orange, and that's because it will leave a tag at the front, and I'll show you in a second. So I'm just going to catch that in and take it over the wire and trap down those sections of wire at the top. And I'm going to take back my tie-in thread so it's in line with the hook point for my thorax. And just make a nice, neat underbody while still checking that my bead can move. Get rid of the tag end. And now we're going to move into thorax cover. I'm going to use, for the thorax cover, I'm going to use this, I'm going to use Unimylar, peacock orange, size 14. Probably get away with a 12 on this, but the 14 is what I've got out at the moment. I love this stuff because it's got this iridescent peacock on one side and it's got this orange on the other. I use it a lot for thorax covers on a lot of flies, particularly on Copper Johns, works really well. And the color that I want on the top of the thorax is going to be the peacock, iridescent peacock. So I'm going to place it on the top of my hook with the orange facing upwards, and I'm just going to push that underneath inside the bead. There we go, so I don't have to mess around with that. And then a little loose wrap just to hold it in place. Make sure it's where I want it to be. And then take that forward. There we go. And we're in play for the thorax cover. Now, the thorax itself, I'm not going to mess around with lots of different dubbings today. I'm going to go back to my snowshoe rabbit from Nature's Spirit. Was another late night purchase where packets were about £1.30, so I just bought loads of them because I do love this stuff. And I'm going to go for a grey olive rather than the calabatis this time. And I'm going to go through the same process. So I'm going to lightly touch dub and just move it up as I go along. Now notice I'm not putting lots of wax on these. I'm relying on the wax and the thread itself, but I've always found that I haven't really needed to. I found that I can dub materials particularly quite well. So I'm just going to get that into play. And I'm going to use that same technique where I'm just going to form the rather unorthodox dubbing loop. And then just get rid of that. There's a little guard hair in the way. Take that all the way back. And then work out what I did with my spinner. There we go. Give it a quick spin. What you get with the fire orange thread is that it does get to show through as well, which I quite like. And hold it, and then on we go. Touch in turns. Now you can make the thorax as bulky as you like or as slim as you like. But I'm gonna go down, back up, and down again, just behind my bead. Put a couple of lock-in turns in. Put that off. And just build up just behind the bead. Now that bead, I want it to be less, have a little bit less movement. So I'm just gonna dub a little bit in behind that. So I could have taken it up further. That's better. There we go. So it's already looking pretty buggy. And now I'm going to put some legs in. And for this, I'm going to use Cook's Hill Irish Golden Olive Partridge for this. Again, and you know, Steve's partridge in packet partridge is absolutely fantastic, as we all know. Again, when I get to the BFFI, I'll be the person that's got a bag full of them. Probably look a bit like a partridge or something. So I'm just going to take off the fluffy bits, and then I'm just going to trim bits off. I'm going to find the tip, push everything back in a V, like that. So I've got the tip there. And then I'm going to come in and I'm just going to nip off the tip. So I've got this V shape. that's going to produce some leggy sort of action on this. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to place it on the top, and I'm going to place it quite far down to start. And then I'm just going to use my thumb and forefinger just to push it down around the thorax. And then I'm going to pinch wrap once, twice. And then I'm going to pull everything back. And then get both sides and just give them a push to either side, like so, and then lock in place, like so. There we go. Now, just going to push them down. Now I'm going to bring my thorax cover across. Make sure it's directly on top. Like that. 1, 2, 3. Trim off the excess. And then I'm going to build up a collar of the fire orange just behind the bead. So another mini trigger. And find my whip finisher. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. I just push down. I'm just going to push those legs down. And then I'm going to come in with some Golf Classic UV resin to form a thorax cover. I did have a needle. Where's my needle gone? I'll go grab another one. I'm just going to take my resin. I think I might need a new bottle. It's there somewhere. There it is. I'll take a drop of resin and very carefully just dab it onto the Unimylar thorax cover and across the hot spot onto the head, onto the bead. It gives a really nice rounded feel to the fly, and then give it a zap. It also protects that section, which is quite vulnerable. So, you know, you get a hit from a fish, you're not having to worry about tying lots more. And just for the sake of it, because I like it quite domed, if I can actually get some resin out of here. Oh, here it is. A little bit more. And just build up a
with that
second
extra
layer.
resin on top, it'll help turn it upside down, won't it, Mark?
Well, the speed at which it goes through the water, it hasn't really got that much time to turn anyway. But yeah, it helps it break through the surface as well. The itching brownies love a variation of this, which will do with which is really a Batis nymph in size 16 to 18, and it's a really successful pattern. But I just thought I'd put the weave in just because we don't see it. We don't see a weave being done, and it's not too hard. and I will do a video on it at some point next week, because obviously I can get in closer with my camera. But you end up with a, where's my, I don't know if you get how much you can see of that. You end up with a nice weave on the fly. I'll take some pictures of it, of course, and put it up. But just another, it's a really nice one to sort of impress people, I suppose. You're all really quiet. You're worrying me now.
We're paying attention.
You're paying attention. You're paying attention.
Most are on mute, Mark.
Good. Just gonna have a quick slurp of wine. Anybody got any questions about anything we tried so far, or?
So what would you call that? Just a woven wire nymph?
Yeah. The weave itself is called a Houdini weave. Why, I have no idea. I did try and look it up, but you know, all I got on my research was, well, just because it is. So I call it the Houdini nymph. And I use it with buzzers as well. You know, it's an alternative way of tying a brassy. If you've got some brassy wire, you know, if you want to be a bit creative with them. And actually, it doesn't take very long. It probably takes longer to cut the wire and tie it together than it does to form the body.
I think,
Mark,
Mark, it's about 13 different weaves you can do, isn't there?
There's loads. There's absolutely loads. I've played around with doing weaves for caddis nymphs where, you know, the weave is up the side and then you get the shell-like layer across the top. What I've always found with those is they become really bulky because they're often tied with quite thick threads. And when I'm fishing on the rivers down here, the Itchen and the Test, and I've done my river sampling and the river fly surveys, our nymphs are minute and slim as hell. The only things that aren't slim are the shrimps that are big and fat down here. But we surprisingly, when people say to us, you know, what am I doing? I'm not catching very much on our beats. And we talk about, well, you need to drop down sizes. You absolutely need to go from your size 10 nymphs that you're trying to get these fish to take, down to your 16s, 18s, and in some extent sometimes even a size 20. Because that's what they're gorging on all the time. So it's just a bit of fun, a woven nymph, and just something else to try.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay, right. So third fly, bit of a departure now. We're heading into more dry fly territory. I got a phone call. Let me just make sure I've got the right box. Yes, I have. I got a phone call about 6 months ago from someone, and said, "Can you tie me some flies?" And I said, "Yes, of course." And in typical fashion, he sent me some photos of said flies that were all out of focus and from the wrong angles, and said, "Can you copy these?" And it was sort of like, okay, I might have to ask you a few questions. But it turns out he wanted two flies, particular flies, in lots of different sizes, just the two patterns, to take to Patagonia and Iceland. So I had to do a lot of research because he didn't know what the hooks were. He just gave me a rough feel and a rough idea. So this next fly, is called the Tekka ant. So it's sort of like a bit of an ant pattern as such, but it's heavy duty. It is big because it's ultimately going to be sitting in the surface for those massive browns down in Patagonia in those beautiful rivers. So I did a lot of researching of hooks and things like that. And the hook I decided to come up with to use for it, and it turned out it works really well, is is an RX or AREX NS172 curved Gammerus hook.
Right.
Okay, size 10. So this is a saltwater hook. And it's one that I've used in slightly bigger sizes, in the size 6, to produce, let me just, sort of realistic caddis imitations and things like that, which I might do on another one if I'm ever invited back by Derek. Ultimately, I decided that I try this, and I did lots of field testing, and I made them up and dropped them into buckets of water to see how they'd float, because I was just worried that the hook was going to be too heavy. But actually, it sits right in the surface with the hook just dropping under, the hook point just dropping under. So when the fish come up and hit it, you're more likely, because of the nature of the hook, it's got more of a circle hook shape. You're going to get that hook up, hopefully. It is barbed. They wanted barb down there. That's what we got. So to tie this particular fly, there we go. I'm going to use, if I just make sure I got the right box, I'm going to use some UTC 70 denier black, purely because, well, not purely, but definitely because it lies flat and it gives this beautiful sheen underneath. Okay, and I'm going to leave a bit of space just behind the eye as my guide. Touching turns as much as possible to about in line with the barb. Take 1, 2, 3 turns back just to trap it in, get rid of the waste material, and then take those 3 off. And then I'm going to use this flat tinsel. Now, I don't know how familiar people are with Cardiff. Derek, I know you are.
Yeah.
And Peter, yeah, you know. So about 30 odd years ago, when obviously I was only very, very, very young, really honest.
Swaddling.
Yes. My dad, we used to go down to Cardiff Market and on the weekends, and that's where we pick up our fish, and we'd sit and eat cockles from the fish market just outside the main entrance. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
I don't know if it's still there anymore. I've not been back for ages. But right in the middle of Cardiff Market, it's in this beautiful Victorian hall with multi-layers on it. So you can go upstairs, and they always used to have pet shops where you could go and buy your dogs and cats in those days, and things like that. There is, if you get there and it's still there, there is a great cafe for the greatest and most gigantic, greasy fried breakfast, particularly if you've been out on the lash. But I bought this 30 years ago, along with some gold stuff from the haberdashers that were right in the middle. There used to be a couple of haberdashers, and the guys I used to learn from, all my fly tying back in Cardiff, it'd be like, yeah, go in there. That's where you can get, and it's like an Aladdin's cave. And again, I don't know if it's still there. But I've never been able to get hold of this Lurex, as it's called. But this is 30 years old, so it's vintage. This is a vintage fly. So it's got nothing to do with the fly tying. I just thought it was a nice story. So I'm just going to place it to one side and just tie it in, and then just take my tying thread. And I'm going to use the Lurex to guide my wraps so that they're touching, as if it was the tag end of the thread. That's the reason why I stopped earlier, rather than have any discrepancies in my underbody. So I'm going to take it about 3/4 of the way around, and I'm going to spin it so that it flattens out. So I want to take it back up, but I want it to be as flat as possible. I don't want any ridging wherever possible. And then I'm going to take it. Now, bear in mind, I had to tie 200 of these. I was sick and tired of them by the time I'd finished. Okay, so I'm going to take it all the way back up to the top. And then I'm going to take my rib, and I'm going to take it around and work my way up the body in equal segments where possible. There we go. Up we go.
Did you put any super glue on that?
Nope, none at all. Super glue and I don't get on, Derek. I find I end up being stuck to things a lot. In fact, Kieran always tells me that I'm not safe when super glue's around, so I have to have parental support for it. What you can do, and I'm not going to do it today, what you can do is put a thin layer of Thin Man resin on it, and you can make up lots of bodies ahead of time, and then go in for the rest. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring my tying thread back down to the point of the hook. Now I'm going to form my body. Now my body I've already pre-formed, and it's a piece of foam, and I absolutely adore using these River Road Creations body cutters. I don't know if you've all come across them. They're absolutely fantastic. I've got them for mayflies, got them for all sorts of stuff, and I use them a lot for my carp flies, actually, for making big hoppers for carp flies, for carp in the summer. This one is
sorry, Mark.
Say that again.
What's the brand of those? Sorry.
They're River Road Creations. They're from Montana. You can pick them up from Uphaven.
Right, brilliant. Thank you.
Yeah. Well worth getting hold of a variety of sizes. These are for size 10, but you get them for size 8, 12, 14, 16. So, this sort of fly is basically scaling it down for the river. Beetle patterns and all sorts of stuff, isn't it, Steve? So what I'm going to do with this is it's already nicely tapered, so I don't need to do anything with it. And I'm going to position it on the top of my hook. And I want about 50%, 60% behind the fly. And I need to have enough here so that I can form again a sort of a thorax cover as well. So I'm going to pinch turn.
What foam is that, Mark?
This is Uphaven's flat foam.
Oh, so it comes that thick. It's not like the Vineyard blocks that you can cut from. And
let me just pull out my foam drawer. I told you I got way too much. So it comes about, where's my rule? I'll give you an exact. So this is 2 mil thick.
Right.
Okay. But of course you can pick up the blocks as well. Now I sell these on my website. Okay. So you can get these from me if you like, or from Uphaven, preferably from me. Okay, it's much nicer. But they come in all sorts of wonderful colours. That one, the red for carp, they seem to go absolutely bonkers for it.
Yeah, it looks a lot thicker than 2 mil on there, to be honest.
It does. It does. And I've been played around with the sort of stuff you get from Hobbycraft and stuff like that. Yeah, but I find that it doesn't float as well.
Yeah, it's not as closed, not as tight as at the cells.
No, not at all. It's more open cell than closed. But it comes in all sorts of weird and wonderful colours. Scrap that back. So I know if I'll have everything on the floor and I walk down tomorrow and go, oh my God, what was I doing last night? It's crazy. Okay, so just gonna position it on the top. There we go. All right, so we've got it in there. And what I'm then going to do is I'm going to put some legs in. Now that should be fairly secure in there, but by the time we've finished with it, we'll have secured it right down. Now, don't know about you guys, I've got shed loads of these leggy things. I
Mhm.
don't ever remember buying them. I just have lots of them. So I've made it my mission this year to just use them in everything from dry flies to buzzers to whatever. Not to form legs, but it forms quite nice bodies and segmented effects and all those sorts of things. So I'm going to use some of this, and I'm going to come in and take it under, bring it to one side. And I want the back leg to be longer than the front. So the back leg I'm going to position so that it is the same. It's as long as the abdomen of the beetle or of the ant, sort of the flying ant. So I've got that in. I'm just going to tie that down, make sure that it's in. It does have a tendency to move around, but you can play around with it and position it as you like. Now, what you can do with these is you can then bring everything around and tie in on the other side. Just pull it up. 2, there we go. And get that in. Come back to here. Give it a trim. Like that. And then at the front, cut it. I decided when I was tying this, seeing as the picture I had was really blurred, that I was going to tie it so that they were just in line with the eye of the hook, like that. And then position it, and then just give it an extra little tight turn in like that. So we've got our legs starting to appear. And then I take my tying thread in front of the foam, and I'm just going to form a nice little bed there. Now, this particular one, I am going to go back to the snowshoe rabbit again. You don't have to do this, but it does work. I'm going to use this as a slight underbody, but I'm going to come in with this barred whiting cockhackle. Okay, and I want quite a big feather for this, so I don't often, because I'm always tying small flies, I sort of get a feel for the right size, but I'm going to use my hackle gauge on this one. Yeah, that's about right. So I want it so it's about a size 10. So I can do it on the, yeah, that's perfect. So I'm just going to clip that off. Bare the end. I'm going to bring it in. I'm just going to tie that in. Going to clip that off. There we go. So I've got my hackle. And then I'm going to bring my thread back. I'm going to go for black blood leech. So it's black, but it's got this, it's got a magenta-y sort of purple in it. For this one, I'm just going to do a basic dub. So on it goes. Don't want it too thick. And put 2 turns in. Then use that to grip and tighten onto my dubbing loop. And then just form a little underbody there. There we go. And then I'm going to take my hackle. And I'm going to wind my hackle through my dubbing. As many turns as you as you fancy, to be fair. I reckon I can get about 5 or 6. Couple of lock-in turns. Trim off the waste. And then wet my finger. I just place it in the middle of the hackle and just twist side to side. And just push it down. And then I'm going to bring my thorax foam cover over the top to push them down either side. And then I'm going to form a loop. 2, 3, 4. There you go. Now, if you remember, I left the guide space just in front of the eye so that I can come back into it when I tie it all off. Like that. That's all nice, and just position my legs. And I'm going to come in. Whip finish just in front of the post at the front. Now you could double that back over for extra buoyancy and finish and tie off in the center and put the legs on later. You could do that. But the brief was to be like the picture. And this is what the picture looked like, except it was out of focus. And then I'm going to take the front section here, and I'm not going to bring it right back. I'm going to cut it at 45 degrees. There we go.
Yeah.
And we form a nice ant pattern. You can scale that down to size, well, you know, you could tie it in a 16, couldn't you?
Yeah.
You know, as a beetle type pattern. Again, very successful, tied on a size 8 Fang X carp, Nash carp hook for carp. And they'll hit the hoppers and ignore any dog biscuits, free offerings people have put up. And you start just putting the hoppers out, and they're sitting in the water down like this, so almost just sunk into the surface. And what we found this summer was that the carp would come and they'd hit it because it was low risk. They didn't have to come right to the surface. They could just come and make that slurp. The key was in that strip strike and getting that right. But once you got it, it was electric, and my God, do they run. So another pattern that I've played around with this year, and hopefully might be able to take something away from that.
Yeah, it's good.
Any questions?
No.
Oh, man, tell you, I spent 25 years as a school teacher, and normally I'd be heckled by now. I'd have a kid called Stephen running around at the back of the classroom. Sorry, Steve.
That would normally be me.
Yeah. You know, so you know, it's weird. Right. Okay, time for a little break and a little drink, I think.
And that was a Tekka ant.
Yeah, Tekka. No idea where the name came from. That's the name I was given. I researched it, came up with absolutely nothing. So I think what it was a guide's tide fly that the gentleman had got hold of, and it had been named. It almost had a South African feel to it. I don't know, the Tekka type ant type thing. So there was this, and the other one was a great big Zonka streamer that he asked me to tie, which I was going to do tonight, but I've just got fed up of tying them. So sorry. Right. Next fly. Let me know if I'm whizzing through these too quickly, guys. Next fly. Let me just tidy up my little space here. Is one of my absolute all-time favorite dry flies. And not only do I like fishing with it, and not only do we catch a lot of fish with it, I just like tying it. And sometimes you got to have flies that you just like tying, and because otherwise the whole thing becomes really quite formulaic. So, and it doesn't matter how often I tie these, I just get really into it. So for this particular fly, I'm going to use a Klinkhamer hook. Again, another one of my favorites. This is the Partridge 15BMY, the barbless Klinkhamer hook. Again, another great one for using it for ant patterns as well as emerger patterns, as well as Klinkhamers, of course. But I use it for tying stimulators. And a stimulator is one of the first flies I put on when I hit the river, even at this time of year, to try and coax up some of those grayling that are still looking up, because they down here on the Itchen, the grayling will quite nicely take a dry fly. And I don't know about you guys, down here it's still about 17-18 degrees, so it's still unseasonably warm. And we're still getting really some quite nice hatches on the river, particularly with sedges. And the stimulator is the fly that we use I use as a searching fly. So it's the first one to go on, and I want to see if I can get things to come up and try and hit it, and they often do. And this is a great hook because I love the shape on it. Gives you lots of space to do all sorts of stuff. Okay. I'm going to use my 12-aught Semperfli wax thread, classic wax thread. I'm going to leave my little space just in front, about 2 mils in front of the eye. And I'm going to work in touching turns all the way back to roughly in line where the barb would be if this was a barbed hook. Couple of turns forward, get rid of my waist. Now I'm going to just reposition the hook ever so slightly because I want to put my tail in. So this is where I delve into my massive patchwork deer draw, and come up with this golden, old gold dyed, again, nature's spirit deer hair. I've tried lots of deer hair. I've even had stuff that have been given to me from people that have shot deer. Still, this nature spirit stuff is good. It's good crack, and it's getting harder and harder to come by. So what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to take a pinch, and it's really nice and long. I'm going to take a pinch, and if I spread that out so they were all next to each other, so that's about 1.5 centimeters. I'm not going to use all of those because I'll pick a few out as I'm going along. I'm going to cut those off at the base. I'm just going to wet my fingers slightly and just take that under fur out. There we go. And any smaller pieces. There we go. And I'm going to take my stacking tool, place them in. Bit of a tap. And take them out. Hopefully I've got all the tips aligned. There'll be 1 or 2 that aren't, and those are the sacrificial ones. There's always some shorter hairs. It's worth taking the time just to tease those out because they just become a pain. And then I'm going to offer it up. Now that's too much. As I said, I was going to sacrifice some of them, and it's always easier I find it's always easier to have too much and scale down and try to keep adding as we go through. So I'm gonna take a quarter of that off. There we go. Still a little bit too much. Plus, no matter what I do, I've got a hair that is flipped backwards and is not the right way around. How does that happen? Does anybody else get that? That's just weird. And then I'm just going to quickly restack those. Much nicer. Much nicer. Could even just pare that down. There we go. Right. Then I'm just going to offer it up. And I want the tail to be about the length of the body. So just going to hold it with my thumb and forefinger, pinch wrap it down, hold it. I'm not pulling down on the downstroke. I'm going to pull down on the upstroke. Now, what I find that does is it traps it on the top of the hook rather than allows it to spin, particularly if I keep a tight grip of the tail section. And then what I'm going to do is put some lock-in turns in and then just have a quick check. Yeah, that looks good. And then I'm going to take these sections, hold them in my right hand, and then form an underbody of deer hair up to about 8 mils from the eye, because I want to leave enough space for the wing to go in. Otherwise it becomes way too bulky. And then I'm going to come in at 45 degrees and form a nice flattened taper at the front. And then I'm going to work my way back and just flatten everything down. There we go. Now, no matter what happens, deer hair is going to flare. Because again, if you look at it under a microscope, it's not hollow. It's got air pocket compartments in it. And what you're doing is you're compressing those, and no matter what happens, some of that air is going to get pushed in. So it's just like standing on a half inflated balloon, isn't it? You step on one side and it inflates at the other end, so it's going to flare. I quite like that though. Quite like that little flare. Let's place that in. And there we go. Right now, next stage, I'm going to put a rib on this because a little bit later on, I'm going to palmer a hackle, and this rib is going to secure my hackle. It's very fine. This is 0.09 mil hen's wire in copper. I'm going to take my thread back up, and then I'm going to tie this in. There we go. I'm going to make sure I'm tying it down the side. It's not spinning and ending up on the top or the bottom. It's all in one plane. And there we go. And round we go again. And all the way back down. So that's now in place. I'm just going to clip that out of the way. Now I need to put in a dubbed body. Now for this particular one, I'm going to go for quite a light coloured body, and I'm going to use golden stonefly, sort of a gold orangey colour, because that'll tie in with the hackle that we're going to use. And again, I'm just going to dub this on. Now, for this particular fly, I don't want it to be a bulky underbody. I'm just going to dub it on quite tightly. And I find that rabbit, particularly the snowshoe hair, rabbit and hair allows you to do that. I'm going to put 1, 2 turns in, tighten, 1, 2 turns in, twist, 1, 2 turns in, little twist, 2 turns, tighten up, 1, 2 turns, 1, 2 turns. There we go. And tag that in. There we go. Get rid of any waste. Just give that little pull out from there, and then I'm going to go back to my what was this? This was my whiting, wasn't it? And I want a hackle on this one that's slightly shorter. This is a what did I say it was, a 12. So I want this sort of as a size 14 hackle on the body. I don't want it to be obtrusive. So I'm just going to have a quick check. That's a 12. There we go. There's the one. I'm going to knit that off. And then here I'm going to come in at the tip of, I'm going to cut these barbules so that I form a little comb at the end here. Now what that does is when I bind it in, it allows the thread to bind between the teeth as such, so that that's not going to pull out at all. If sometimes I find that if I don't do that and I've just got a plain stalk of the hackle, and I'm not concentrating, and I pull and it's out. This won't. This is bulletproof. And then in I come. Ooh, get that out. And I'm just going to trim that off. Back up we go. There we go. And then I'm going to take my hackle. And I'm going to put 1, 2 turns at the front. And then I'm going to palmer it down towards the tail. 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm going to take my wire and I'm going to trap in the tip. And then I'm going to bring my wire in the opposite direction, wiggling it all the way through to minimize the number of barbules that I trap. And what this also does is it holds it in place, but it gives it extra protection when you get hit from a trout. It doesn't destroy the hackle, so it's all hanging off, and it makes it ultimately you get to use the fly multiple times. All right, I'm going to tie that off. Here we go. And then it's not very thick, so it won't take much to worry it off. Just tidy up this front end. I'm going to give that a pull. It's all secured in. So we've got this really quite nice palmered bushy effect there. And then what we're now going to do is we're going to put a wing in, a thorax, and another hackle at the front. Okay, which basically I've got about 8 mils to do all of that. Okay, so to help me out here, I'm going to take the top of this hackle and I'm going to hold it up. I'm going to come in with my scissors at 45 degrees. I'm just going to give it a trim, because that will allow my wing to sit slightly deeper. And I'm going to go back to my original deer hair that I was using. And again, I'm going to use much less for the wing than I did for the tail. So about, if I'm holding that up, if they were all, yeah, it's about 0.5 centimetre, 5 mil. Give that a trim. same process to get rid of the under hair. And any shorter pieces, drop it into the stacker. Get rid of anything that looks dodgy. That was possibly the worst piece of hair stacking I have ever done. Live to you. There you go, guys.
Happens
Right.
to everybody.
Yeah. It's the pressure, Derek. It's the pressure.
It's the silence, Derek, the silence.
That's because I'm on mute as well.
You asleep, Derek?
No, not yet, Timbo.
What are you trying to say, Tim? Car. I'm going to come in my wing. Now, the wing, I don't want it to come all the way back and be longer than the tail. So I want it to complement the tail, and the aesthetics side of it suggests that almost a 45-degree angle dropping down, because ultimately we want it to I want it to represent sort of a sedge wing case across the back. So I'm just going to tie that down, some lock-in turns. It's just going to sit across the top there. Now notice I didn't tie it down so it came all the way to the eye. The reason for that is because I want to taper the cut as I come in. I'm going to taper the cut because this is the crucial stage to form the thorax area of the fly, and it can get very clustered at the front if you're not careful. So there we go, liking that. Not too worried about one or two of them sticking out in the wrong direction. I'm going to fish with it, not sleep with it. So for the front section, I'm going to go with a rusty olive. So a distinctive difference to the body, tiny little pinch I'm going to need of that. And I'm going to go for a very contrasting hackle. So this is a Metz Dunn grade 1. And if you remember, I went from a size 14 for the body. I want that size 12 hackle for the front. So it's just a case of, well, that's a 14. Using the hook gauge. There we go. I do often tend to use my stimulators. I use a lot of grizzle hackle, just because I've got loads of it, but it's just such a universal hackle, isn't it? And again, I'm going to form a little comb effect. Just have a quick little check. Now I need to just adjust that ever so slightly. Not happy with that. There we go. And then the same as we did with the previous hackle, tie it down. Trim off anything that's going to get in the way, and then take your thread down to the eye. Now it's worth putting in a little whip finish there just at the eye, because quite often it gets a bit fiddly. I've missed the stage. It gets a bit fiddly. I'll come back to that, but it does get a bit fiddly. And as you're palmering the hackle through the thorax, you end up with it pinging off and unraveling. I forgot to put the underlayer in on the thorax. So tiny little pinch, really tight, contrasting color. One, two, three, four, five. Don't take it too far. Tighten it up. There we go. That's the bit I missed. Whack it in there. There we go. And then I'm going to take my done hackle, and I'm going to put 1, 2 turns directly at the base of that thorax, and then I'm going to palmer it. Oh, it's just starting to spin in the wrong direction there. Let's redo that. Give it a pull. That's better. That much better. We'll take it all the way down to 3 or 4 turns. Drop your tying thread over the top to trap it in. 2, 3. And nip off that section there. It's always worth, I don't know if you guys do this, but I always keep those little bits there, either for very, very small flies, or they make great wings for daddies and things like that. There's no point in wasting them at all. We've got a little jar that I put them in. I'm just going to stroke everything back, and I'm going to build my head up. And trap everything down. Just have a quick little look. I've got a little fiber there, little bit of feather that shouldn't be there, a bit that shouldn't be there. There we go. And there we have it.
Very nice.
And I tie those down to 18s, and they're big and they're bushy, and they work on still waters. They work on the rivers. Great searching pattern. If you're ever unsure about what they might be taking, I haven't come across many fish that at some point, you know, even if it's just one, that will go up and go, oh, what's that? And have a knock at it. One of my favorites. I cannot believe how quiet everybody is.
Because they're all muted.
So I'll give you an example. That was done with the gold. There's a slightly smaller version with bleached deer, but in an olive and a ginger. And in fact, actually, this one's taken a couple of fish. So you can see that's what it looks like. It's still looking like a decent fly, and well worth having those in your box. They're just great to
hooks are they
tie.
again, Mark? Did you say? Sorry.
Say that again, dude.
What hooks are they, mate? Did you say?
These are Partridge Klinkhamer hooks, 15 BNY. Again, I sell these, but along with lots of other Partridge hooks. But worth keeping hold of, particularly the barbless ones. You can very rarely get them. And they go all the way down to a size 20.
Cool. I'll get some.
And you know, they're absolutely fantastic, absolutely stunning. Okay.
Mark, could you eventually tell me where to find your shop?
Yeah, it's lostlakefly.co.uk.
Okay, I'll have a look now.
Thank you, Alois. How are you?
I'm pretty fine, having a second beer right now.
The second beer. I bet you're getting all riled up for the pike season, are you?
Aye.
Good for you.
I'm getting ready for the next fairs because Berlin is calling in the end of November.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think we're gonna see us at the BFFI, I guess. You talked about it already. Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be cool. I've already got my accommodation booked. Anyone else staying in the Saracen's Head?
Sorry again.
Anyone else staying in the Saracen's Head for the BFFI?
I'm trying to already. But I'd like to share a room if possible, but nobody wants to share a room at the moment.
Because you snore and fart, Alois.
I go there on a Monday night, Mark.
Yeah. No, we actually booked them after the day we left from the last BFFI because we figured we'd be back. Right then, folks. So so far, Alois, you just joined us. I tied a suspender buzzer, a Houdini nymph, a Tekka ant, and a dry fly, one of my dry fly favorites, which is a stimulator. And I've got another one to go, if that's okay with everybody, if I haven't put everyone to sleep.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is one that, man, you know, I tie custom flies for people and things, and I've lost count of the number of these that I've tied over the last couple of months. So it's the disco shrimp, so Ben Bangham's disco shrimp, and it's a great little gradient pattern, particularly on a dropper. You know, with something heavy and sacrificial on the point, but it's also quite a nice little fly to tie, and good as a general shrimp pattern. So again, I'm going with my with that universal full in mill check nymph hook, the FM 5065. Okay, if I could get away with it, I would tie everything on this hook. I have decided, and I think I might start trying to do that. Tie absolutely everything from now on this, even for sharks. But I've got that on there, and to start off with this, I need an underbody of lead. So what I've done is I've trimmed off a 1.5 to 2 mil little strip of this flat lead, which is adhesive backed. Okay, Semperfly. I've got some of this in stock in the shop as well, and it's got an adhesive backing on it, which is great because it helps to trap it in place. So just peel that off. What I'm going to do is I'm going to place it about 3/4 of the way round the hook, and I am just going to hold it on, and then in touching turns as flat as possible, I'm going to form a lead underbody going up through the fly, but I'm not going to go all the way to the eye. I'm going to leave about 3 mils before the eye, and what you can do is nip off with your fingers. I'm going to come in with a little pair of snips and just snip quite close in, because it gives me a nice straight edge that I can just fold over. And then I'm going to repeat it, but this time I'm going to start the second layer not right down where I started the first. I'm going to come up about a couple of segments up so that I can taper and get a domed effect on the body. 2, 3, 4. And again, I'm not going to go all the way to the eye or all the way to the last piece of lead. I'm going to get a much shorter piece into the middle. The great thing about this particular fly is you can adjust how much lead you put in. So I am going to put a third layer in, much shorter. And again, 1, 2, 3. Just nip that off. And there we go. So we got a nice underbody formed. I'm not going to do anything with that at the moment. I will later on, but not now. And then I'm going to come in with this, I think it's, not quite sure which thread it was, but it's a fire orange anyway. I think it might be Vivus or Unithread. No, it's a Unithread actually. Fire orange Unithread 8-aught. And I'm now going to cover the lead with a nice covering of thread to even out any imperfections and help with the taper. Also gives it a nice sort of underbody color. So back and forth, paying particular attention where you might have some steps. And then I'm going to leave my thread halfway. There we go. That's all nice and secure in there. And now grab a couple of other things. I go back to my Hens 0.18 mil wire. This is a very vivid green. Okay, because I want it to stand out. Snip that off. And I'm going to tie in the rib. I'm going to bring it down and I'm going to tie it so that it's all along the side in one plane. All the way back up, little push to get it into position. Now all the time what I'm doing on these, and I'm sure you guys do it as well, is I'm just checking that I haven't got materials that are forming lumps and bumps and things like that, because it's just a pain to rectify those later on. And then back to the middle again. Now the next stage is I'm going to use some nymph skin. Again, really versatile. Just be aware that it does degrade in UV light. So after a while, if you leave them in your fly box and the sunlight gets to them, it will eventually break down. So use them as quickly as you can. I'm going to trim off the length of that. Now one side has got a slight iridescent pattern to it. The other side is quite dull. And I want the iridescent side to be uppermost. So I'm actually going to tie it in so that the iridescent side is face down. And I've just cut in a 45-degree angle there on the nymph skin. And I'm just going to hold it on the top, pinch it on the top, and pinch wrap, hold it down. Again, come up to the top, tighten on the top as you pull up. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to tighten it to thin it out and make my way back to the tail section. There we go, to the end, and then work my way back up again. And then the nymph skin, just for the moment, can hide over there. I've got this section here at the front, but I'm just going to use that to tie down. And then what I'm going to do is put a nice little fire orange underbody. Doesn't have to totally cover everything, but latexy, nymph skinny type stuff is, in my experience, it has an uncanny ability to escape at any given time. And you know, even like that, it'd be there and it'd be like, oh, suddenly it's fallen out. You go, hang on, what's going on? So I'm going to not give it any opportunity to escape. Now I'm going to go in with some Hen's UVI stubbing here. Lots of beautiful colors. Now, I don't know if you can see the one in the middle here. There's not a lot of it left. That's because I really like that color, and that's the color I'm going to use for my disco shrimp. It's sort of it's a UV pink. It's great for shrimps, so that's why I use it a lot. And I mix it with other things as well. So I'm going to take and tease out a reasonable amount. And with this stuff, I always, because it's synthetic, I always tease it out. I don't just pull it out in a clump, because I want to do a lot of the pre-dubbing work before I even get close to my thread. So I'm going to hold the dubbing just there in my left hand, and I'm just going to introduce the front section to the thread, and it's a felting process really, just giving it a little twist, little turn. Because it's synthetic, it's not going to work and be as nice as that rabbit was and do everything you want it to, but at the moment we can get it so that it's held on. And notice again, I'm not using any wax on these. I tend not to, because I get into a mess. That and super glue, not good. And I'm just going to position those on. There we go. And then I'm going to form my unorthodox dubbing loop again. Quick, easy, cheap dubbing loop. I'm going to take my thread all the way back up to the top. Pick up my spinning tool and give it a spin. So I've got it all locked in place. And then I'm going to take my homemade patented Velcro lolly stick and just run it all the way down, just tapping it, not brushing it as such, but just tapping it so it traps it, and then it all just starts to bug out so I can get that leg idea going on. And then use my hackle pliers. In we go. And then I'm going to start to wind up the body, touching turns, taking my time. Building up, slimmer at the ends and thicker in the middle is the key idea. So I'm going to put more turns into the middle section. Giving it a brush back, so I'm not trapping anything forward. I'm not going to take it all the way to the front because I need to leave some space, and the nymph skin itself, it bulks out. So if you make the mistake of taking it all the way up to the front, all the way to here, you've got virtually nothing to tie down on, and it ends up with a massive step, and it looks unsightly, but it also will not tie off particularly well. So I'm going to put 2 lock-in turns in there. Trim that up. There we go. And just tidy up that end there. It's all good. And then we've got our nice looking leggy type sections there. And I'm just going to use my finger just to push it down to either side, because I'm going to bring across the nymph skin now, across the back of the shrimp. Now, the good thing about the nymph skin is that the harder you pull it, the thinner it gets. So you can make very thin bodies, you can make very thick bodies. It's great for doing segments on caddis nymphs and things like that. You can use it for all sorts of stuff. I don't want it to be going down either side too far. So I'm just going to give it a little pull, hold it in place, lock it in place with 2 turns. Less is always more. And just have a look at it. It does have a tendency to slip to one side. Lock it in place, like so. Now it's at this point, again, I'll put in just one whip finish. And the reason for that is because I'm going to stretch the nymph skin, and if it pings back and I let go of it, all of your threads unwind, and then it's just a complete pain in the backside. So I'm going to stretch it so that when I cut it, I leave very little at the front end. Okay. I'm just going to tidy that up. There we go. Now, it's got my green rib. Okay, so my green rib, I'm going to wind the rib on the opposite direction to the way I wound my thread. But I'm going to put 1 turn right at the back of it, underneath the nymph skin there. Just pushes everything up. And then I'm going to start with turns that are relatively close to each other at the end. So 2 turns that are quite close to each other, about 1 mil or 2 apart. And then they get wider as we get towards the back. And I'm just checking as I'm going along that the nymph skin isn't just sliding to one side. I'm going to give it another, there we go. And then when I get up towards back 2/3 of the way, I'm going to start to just pull that down. I'm going to start to bring those wire turns closer together again so that I can finish just on the top. So I'm going to put in some locking turns there. And now I'm going to turn, really keep those in, and then worry it off. Stroke everything back and form quite a hefty head, really. And that's where the fire orange comes in, because it's almost that trigger point again. Whip finish. Quick little check. Now, what do I do with my dubbing brush? There it is. I'm going to come in and quite vigorously give it a really good brush out. You can see why I trimmed down my dubbing brush, because I found that if I use a whole lolly stick, particularly on smaller shrimps, I can't get it in there. Whereas this one, I can manipulate it and get quite into all of the sections. Run it down the sides. Down the sides. I'm going to pull with your fingers. Just trim off any unsightly bits on the top. What I always like to do, this is just me, I come in with my scissors from the eye to the tip of the hook and just give it a
Haircut.
little haircut. You don't have to do that. It's just, I think I'm a bit OCD really. And then I'm going to come in with a permanent marker. This is a brown one. And Nymph skin takes color really well. You can also blend it with different colored markers as well, even if they're permanent markers. But for this, I'm going to use the brown, and I'm just going to color in the Nymph skin, but also just color in the top of the head that I tied. So almost check Nymph look. I'm going to just take my time. Run it down like that. I always take it out as well, because I always miss the very rear of the fly there. There we go. Put it back in. There's only 2 stages to go, both of which you don't have to do. And one of which I might not do if I can't find the tool. Oh, there it is.
Yes.
Serious stuff. All right. Took this out of my man kit. Okay. That I don't actually ever use. But anyway, everybody's got to have a toolkit, haven't they? Right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use these long nose pliers, and I'm just going to hold on to the fly. I'm going to squeeze so that I'm squeezing the lead in the underbody to form a flattened profile. It falls through the water better. It looks far better in relation to the food that the fish are going to eat. And it also forms that really nice domed effect. And it's worth just taking a little bit of time on that. There we go. So nice little mint bit there. And then the final bit is to take some thin man resin, Golf Thin Man, and the needle that I've lost. Find another one. And I'm going to take the needle, take a little bit of Thin Man resin, start at the middle, and just move it along to coat the upper section of the Nymph skin. And what this does is it protects it, because that's the vulnerable bit. Helps protect it from the UV rays as well when it's in your box. But what it also does is it makes the brown shell case zing. It gives it far more definition, and also the green of the rib. Give it a zap. And then, just because I used to use a resin that will remain nameless, that no matter what I did, just remained tacky all the time, no matter how much I zapped it and left it in the sun. So it just became a habit to just put a little layer of hard as nails across the top. And there we have a disco shrimp ready to get out and chase those ladies.
Tidy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
Very nice.
Right.
so lots of flies. I think about the only one of these I've not used is the Tekka ant, because I've not really come across anything that I want to put a size 6 hook down for, and most of the fisheries won't let me around here. But carp, I suppose, in sort of like the hopper fashion, I suppose. But you know, all the rest, definitely worth playing around with. And as I find with absolutely every pattern, and I watched a lot of you guys that put patterns up, you know, Steve, Tim, and stuff, and fantastic patterns, and they're all adaptable, aren't they? It's all about adapting them for the conditions that you're in and where you're at. And you know, there's nothing new in fly tying. They're all exactly the same. But you know, this disco shrimp, just change some of the colors and some of the materials, and you've got a basic shrimp pattern, Gammerus pattern. Stick a great big tungsten bead in the middle of that and lock it in place either side and build up around it with a resin over the top, and you've got a real depth charging tungsten shrimp that'll work. And it was interesting when I was fishing the Derbyshire Y earlier on in, well, not very early on in, it was back in January, I think, the first time I met up with Steve there. You know, it was interesting that I didn't start to hit into grading, Steve, on that day until I just went down to one fly. It was really interesting, and it was a very heavy jig back that I put on, and that's what I had my 5 nice ladies on. But it was really quite an interesting if you haven't been up there, I know Tim, you fish up there a lot, don't you, as well?
Yeah.
It's stunningly beautiful. Stunningly.
The why can be one to get your head around when you can't wade it. Obviously, getting the right cuts, and it's a bit.
But down here we can't wade much of the chalk stream.
Yeah, so you'll be used to that, won't you? So
you know, it's sort of what freaked me out was being in the Derwent when Lady Bower or whatever it was opened up their floodgates, and you know, and Adam and James Wayne and stuff went, yeah, we can wade in that, and I went, not on your bloody life. I'm a bit older than you. I've got responsibilities.
Adam's ruthless, though.
Yeah, exactly. The thing is, though, up to here is about 2 feet for me because I'm only about 4'2"
in the edge.
Yeah, you know, so I'm just like, oh no, I can't do this. I need a safety rope. But I'll take lots of photos of those over the next day or so, guys, and I'll get them up. I do plan to do step-by-steps, downloadable step-by-steps, which I'll share with Derek and you guys. I've also got some already on my website in the digital vault, along with videos and things.
Sorry,
so
but what's the site again, Mark?
LostLakeFly.co.uk, Steve.
Are you going to do your own demos again this winter, Mark?
I plan to start in December.
Cool.
And to start in December. I've had lots of, like all things, it's lots of other things taking up time.
Yeah.
Because this year has been the year where I've actually come out of teaching now, and I do this full time. So I run my own business. I guide, I tie flies, I import stuff and things, and I sell. Well, I'm a supplier for Semperfly, Partridge, guide fly fishing. I've got an account for as well, so I can get all sorts of stuff. You know, so it's all developing.
Brilliant. I think I've had some bits from you actually in the past.
Yeah, but you know, so you know, like all things, it's supply chains at the moment. So getting hold of some stuff, you know, it takes absolute months.
Well, I know you were saying about the nature spirit. I ended up biting the bullet. I just ordered a load from Fly Fish Food in America. To be fair, I was quite lucky. I didn't get charged any tax when it came in. So
yeah, you were very lucky.
It came in a week as well.
Yeah. So it's worth trawling Funky Fly Tie-ins website in the clearance section.
Yeah, if he's got it. Yeah.
Yeah, but not much, and picking it up where you can.
Yeah.
It's because they haven't.
That is, you're almost guaranteed it's good quality. It's not like somewhere you want to see it before you buy it. That nature spirit stuff, it's always good, isn't it?
It is. I can't fault it at all. I've never had anything bad from them at all.
No, I've got a drawer full.
Well, I've got, I don't know. I'll hold the laptop up, but I don't know if you can. Let me just unplug the thing. My what am I doing? It's attached to my iPod, my iPad, not iPod. I haven't got one of those anymore. Oh, that'll do. So, guided tour of the man cave. So I've got loads of these drawers, all labelled in multiples of stuff. So you come in and this is my patchwork deer drawer. My partridge drawer. It's just full of all sorts of stuff.
Awesome.
And that's where I do my tying. So, and also run the business from here. So it's sort of dual edged, so to speak. It's not particularly tidy at the moment, but it never is. Never is. Well, I hope I've done the whole thing justice, Derek, and I hope that
Yeah, thank you, Mark.
people can take stuff away, and more than happy to come back at some point and tie. And thank you for having me, and thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Much appreciated.
Thanks,
okay.
Mark.
Thanks, Mark.
Excellent.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you for
Mark.
in the post.
That's
Cheers,
okay.
Mark.
That's okay. Feel free to ping me messages and stuff through the group or whatever if you want need anything. Go right. Can you tell me what that was and stuff? But I'll put together some various bits and pieces for you. The odd time
See
video.
that picture of that woven one. That'd be good to see.
Yeah, I'll do that in the morning, Steve, and get that up for you.
Thank you.
Because this doesn't actually do it any justice whatsoever at this size. I could be doing this all day, but it's a nice little thing to do. And it's a bit of fun.
Mark,
If any of you guys want to actually post pictures of your flies on the Ludlow Fly Tie-In Facebook groups, please go ahead.
Oh, we'll do. Thank you.
I'll spam that now for you, Derek.
Yeah, I was just thinking that, Steve. I was just going right. I've got a file full.
Yeah.
Mark, can I ask you a question?
Yeah, sure.
Where are you based?
I'm based in Basingstoke, which is south of Reading.
I know.
Just
Because I'm based in Farnham.
Oh, so you're not too far.
No.
You're not too far. No. I do a lot of teaching and guiding at Meon Springs.
Oh dear.
I'm there on Saturday. Actually, I've got a number of clients on Saturday. So, and next Sunday I've got a guy from Japan that doesn't speak any English. So that's going to be fun.
he'll bring his Tenkara rod with him.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. Exactly.
Mark, I'll get in touch with you because I'm secretary of the Way Valley Fly Tires.
Oh, cool.
So we're based in Farnham, and we hold meetings once a fortnight.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, our key guy that did all our demonstrations and step-by-steps, guy called Dave Taylor, who you might know.
Name rings a bell.
Well, he died last week.
Oh no.
Derek's been very kind and invited me to participate in this meeting. But I might get in touch with you to see if we can do a demo, because we do demos once a fortnight in Farnham. And now that Dave's disappeared, we're sort of struggling to know quite how to organize ourselves, because he was just a key guy. Did the same sort of thing as Derek does for the Ludlow group, step by steps, demonstrations, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Packing up materials for us and everything. So it's left a big hole.
Well, get in touch. I'm on the 9th of December. I'm actually doing a fly tying day at Abington.
Oh, yeah.
So more information will come on that, but literally it's turn up, come and tie. I'll have my little pop-up shop there as well. Aaron and the guys there are great, and they might even let us have a little fish. You never know. There's
Bonus.
some stunning fish coming out of there at the moment.
Yeah, it's not a cheap place though, is it?
No, it's not, but they now allow catch and release on anything other than rainbows.
Do they? Hmm.
Yeah, at your discretion, as long as you deal with them properly, i.e. not take them out of the water and hold them up to a camera, and so which I think is a good deal. But yes, it's not the cheapest, but the quality of fish and the facilities are absolutely top notch. Yeah, it does make you think, doesn't it, when you £130 for a 4-fish ticket.
Yeah,
But
that's worse than Diva.
well, Diva's 90, isn't it? Diva's 90. But I would say you've got a greater chance of catching fish at Avington rather than having to jump around the campers.
I don't want to take too much of your guys' time because I'm a guest, but thank you very much indeed.
No, that's absolutely fine. That's absolutely fine. Any other questions, guys?
When you're coming back to the Y?
Still waiting for the buggers to invite us, so it'll probably be January time, I would have thought, dude. We'll probably do the weekend thing again.
Yeah, no, let us know. Let us know.
As long as Matlock isn't underwater.
Yeah, I think it might be at the minute.
Right, I'm going.
No. Well, if not, let us know. We'll sort something out. Get you up.
Well, yeah, same here. If you fancy getting down here,
Yeah, I'd love to.
Yeah. I'll see a different type of river.
Yeah, no, I'm up for that. Sort it.
Yeah, no, cool. Just let me know, dude.
Bro,
Once
superb.
again, thanks, Mark.
Yeah,
That's
thanks,
okay.
Mark.
It's been a pleasure.